Hey, Amy,
Yes, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amy Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amy Cuevas, and I am Juan Ramirez, and welcome to another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Let's get the business out of the way. If you are listening to us on the audio version on the podcast, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and to our YouTube channel. Rate us, write us a review, spread the love, let everybody know about the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit that notification button, give us that thumbs up, leave us comments. We love engaging with you guys. And most importantly, follow us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, how are you? Long time no see.
I know it's been so long.
Since I last saw you, Amy, the Dodgers played actually 2 baseball games. So this episode is going to be very baseball heavy. Let's start the show the way we always start the show, and that is with our base running blunders. Amy, do we have any base running blunders?
It's not really a base running blunder, but it does fall under the category and it does go with our movie theme. So it got brought up. You asked the question, The Rock versus John Cena versus Bautista. David Wants a Taco did comment and point out that, basically you guys will help me see the error of my ways. I did accidentally watch the new movie on Prime, Ricky Stenicki, and oh man, it was bad. I accidentally sent Juan a screenshot showing him how bad it was and picked up one of I watch movies with the subtitles on, or whatever you call them, the closed captioning, because I can hear it better. Holdover from my interpreting days, but accidentally sent Juan a picture with a really bad closed caption sentence. My bad. It was. I will give Cena credit. He plays that character really well, but good God, that movie was horrible.
I did not expect that we were going to start the show with a review of Ricky Stenicki. Amy, you never cease to impress me. I love this. What made you watch Ricky Stenicki, first of all? And I didn't even know. I thought it was going to get released in the theaters. I didn't know that it was on
straight
Prime.
to Prime. I didn't know. I had a really long day at work and we didn't have baseball. And so I was just, you know what, I'm just going to tune out. Prime offered the movie and I was like, oh, John Cena, we were just talking about this. How apropos. Oh man, I wish I could get that time back in my life. I never will. I should have just watched like a pre-recorded game. I didn't. My bad.
Well,
So
Prime does this because and this goes out to my compadre because he is a big fan of the Patrick Swayze classic Roadhouse, and that movie was remade, starring Jake Gyllenhaal.
just saw
And
that ad today, by the way.
and Jake Gyllenhaal and the director of that film were really pushing for a theatrical release, but Amazon stood their ground and said, no, it's going on Prime. So I'm pretty sure that's what they did with Ricky Stenicki too. I'm sure Zac Efron was like, man, this movie's so good. Didn't you see me in the Iron Claw? You got to release Ricky Stenicki in the movie theater. And Amazon stood their ground and said, no, it's going straight to streaming. And I'm so grateful that we're going to have to start a segment with Amy's reviews.
Took one for the team. My bad. I still think John Cena is funny. I'm sure this is somebody else's cup of tea. I mean, I love basketball. I love some of the other movies that Matt and Trey did. This just, I more watched it with like a, huh, as it was going on. So, you guys are gaining ground with the Bautista as a potentially better actor. So, I don't know. I abstain from this argument.
Amy, I'm just going to say this. Yeah, I don't consider this a base running blunder, but it was funny.
Not necessarily, but it was movie related to some of the stuff we were discussing.
And it was interesting because Amy and I did not discuss this before the show, but I planned to start the show with this same topic because I started receiving a lot of pushback. There seems to be a lot of Dave Bautista defenders out there, and I was surprised by the amount of interaction that I got with our listeners, our viewers, and how many Dave Bautista fans we have out there who came out strong to defend him. And
Even my best friend, she was like, "Friend." So I am coming around. You guys are showing me the error of my ways. Thank you for leading me to the light.
Amy, don't give in to peer pressure. If you love The Rock, you can love The Rock. But it was interesting to me how many of our viewers, our listeners, flipped the order that you gave. So you went
Mhm.
The Rock, Cena, and then Bautista. And there were a handful of our listeners, our viewers, who reached out to me and said, "No, Juan, it is Bautista, Cena, and then The Rock." And so much so that we had a listener come out and said that he feels The Rock has gotten lazy with his movie choices. Now, I think if you look at the filmographies, we can break it down this way, Amy, and that is I think even though Dave Bautista can be very funny, I do think, and one of the movies that I think is very, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it's underrated, but I enjoyed it, and that is Stuber. If anybody have ever seen Stuber, it is, I can never pronounce the other actor's name. He was in one of the Marvel movies. He was in the show Chippendales that was on Hulu. And he's totally, his name is, I'm trying, he was, have you ever see The Big Sick, Amy?
Yeah. Is it Kamal
Camille. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Nanjiani?
So there's this movie called Stuber where Kumal and Dave Bautista are in it together, and Kumal plays an Uber driver, and Bautista is like this cop, and he ends up using Kamal to drive him around as his pursuits in crime. Uh, the trailer looked funny to me, right? So I ended up watching it, and I have to admit, to me, Kamal, it cracks me up. Is it Kumal or Kamal?
I'm not sure. Kamal.
He cracks me up, and there are some laughs in that movie. In terms of a ratio, I wish there was a more consistent ratio, but that is a good, if you're at home, stream it if you want to entertain yourself. So I will give Dave, and he is funny a little bit in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So I will give him credit that I just think John Cena is funnier. I think John Cena with blockers, the brief scenes that he has in Trainwreck, I just think he has great comedic chops. So I will
He
say,
does, but my friend said, "What if that is just how he is in real life? What if that is just who he is, and that's why he plays it so well?"
you know what?
So
There's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of actors that made a career with being personalities, and sometimes a personality works for the role. John
I will
Wayne,
I will
John Wayne was
say
a personality. He played the
true.
same. I mean, it's not like he's doing Hamlet up there. Cary Grant was a personality, and Out of Sight is a fantastic movie. I mean, he's made other movies. The Ocean's movies I enjoy. So there's nothing wrong with being actors that play to personalities, is what I'm saying.
I will say, I now that you mention it, I do agree with some of our listeners. The Rock has gotten lazy because I did like some of his earlier movies, and I've noticed as they go along, I watch some of his movies while I do still like him because I don't have to think, and not just like, oh, I don't have to think to laugh or I don't have to think to watch it. Like San Andreas, not a great movie. I like it because it's California based, and I'll throw it on if it's on. I won't flip past the channel. But I would agree with whichever listener said that. Yes, I think Bautista is coming for all of them. I do see the error of my ways, so I'm coming around.
Look, I still don't think this is an error. I think what happened
It's not an
is when
error. It's just I do appreciate our listeners because this would never have been brought to my attention.
once I started seeing the pushback, if you look at the filmography, if you
Mhm,
look in terms of critical, in terms of number of good movies, I think Bautista does have the edge over The Rock
mhm.
because Bautista has both Dunes in his filmography. He has the Guardians of the Galaxy in his filmography. He has a James Bond movie in his filmography. He has Blade Runner 2049 in his filmography. he has a Glass Onion. He has an impressive filmography that I think critically has done better than both Cena and The Rock's. So it's a very interesting argument because you could probably say box office wise, but even Bautista may come for The Rock box office wise. But it was an argument that and we can all thank Mookie for this because Mookie the dog, and he made me. And by the way, I don't know if Mookie's going to make another cameo because I just discovered that YouTube has this like anxiety music for dogs that's like for 24 hours. So I started playing that, and ever since then, Mookie has not barked. So I think the reason why Mookie barked is because he's this little small dog, and I think he has anxiety. I take him for walks, and these two big white dogs came, and Mookie was just like petrified and shaking in his boots. But yeah, so I've been playing this anxiety music in my living room all day, and I feel like I've been at not my chiropractor, but my acupuncturist.
Oh,
Uh,
Juan.
it-
Oh,
it's
Juan. How far we've both fallen.
wow, wow. Okay, so I've completely derailed the show. So, anyways, that was
Thank you to our listeners, basically. Thank you for Ricky Stenicki was my rock bottom. So
oh wow.
I mean, there are funny pieces in it. I am not knocking it. It did show me that I think Bautista does have more range, and I'm willing to learn.
So that was the debut of our segment called Amy in the Balcony, where she gives us her review of a movie. The first movie that I wasn't going to expect her to review, but Ricky Stenicki is the first movie that we have officially reviewed on Baseball Shangri-La. Congratulations, Amy. That's fantastic.
Curtsying right here. Curtsy.
All right, let's talk about what everybody really tunes into the show about, and let's talk about baseball, in particular Dodgers baseball. So when we last left you, the Dodgers played 2 games. So before we get to game 1, can we address the fact that there was a bomb threat before game 1? And it ended up being a non-credible source, but this was a bomb threat that was emailed, and it was addressed specifically towards Shohei. Right, Amy? Are you familiar with this story?
Yes, and they were told, like, just keep, practice as usual unless you hear from us. And when I read that, I was like, but there's a bomb threat. I don't know that I want to practice right now. So, I mean, everything did get cleared, but I don't know. Did you hear more on it after the clearance of it, or?
I did not hear more of it, but I think it was probably an indicator of what was to come in Korea because look, I want to preface this, guys. We are aware that there is an off the field story that is much larger than what's going on right here. And we are going to address it. So if you guys want to talk or you want news on this Shohei Ohtani gambling drama, watch or listen the next episode. This episode, we are specifically just going to focus on baseball. But
I am
it
looking at the article right now. So The Athletic did post something. They used explosive detection dogs. They had X-ray detectors and other equipment to search the stadium, but they did find nothing. So luckily, they just kept working on the baseball game.
but it just goes to show you. I mean, luckily nothing happened and it wasn't a credible threat. But could you imagine we are starting the Major League Baseball season and something like that horrific would have happened? Like what that would do to everything that's happening. And again, there are more and more indicators. I think we just got a glimpse at what Shohei Ohtani's life is really like. And for him to still be out there and perform the way he does is very impressive. But we should have taken that as an indicator, Amy. And you and I, we've talked about this in previous episodes. The Dodgers had a fantastic offseason. And I know everybody thinks I'm the Prince of Darkness and I am just Mr. Negativity, but I don't see any team that has ever gone through a whole season with nothing going wrong and everything just works out for them every single time. And I think the fact that they started with a bomb threat, um, this season's going to be a doozy. And I think these 2 games in Korea, I think is a perfect indicator of what the Dodgers could be, and on both sides, Amy. So I don't know. I want to start with game 1, but your overall thoughts in terms of them in Korea. They end up splitting both games. What were your thoughts?
I thought this was, I mean, we never want to lose, but it's not like we got totally blown out. Like we held our own in both of those games. Did it go how we wanted in the second game? No, but I mean, we won the first one. Obviously, we got it handed to us in the second one, but you thought there was the potential that we might lose both. So splitting has got to feel a little bit better, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? And that's what I was what I was hinting at is the Dodgers could have easily won both games,
Mhm.
or they could have lost both games, because let's look at game 1. Okay, to me, Tyler
Hold on,
Glass.
let me grab my now color-coded scorecards because I found highlighters. Oh my
I'm sorry.
gosh.
What did you say you have?
I color-coded my scorecards this time. They're highlighted.
Nerd alert! Beware, beware. There is a nerd in the vicinity. Hey man, someone's nerding out over here.
That's right, folks. You heard color-coded scorecards.
Mhm.
That's what she's holding up.
Yes,
Um,
yes, I am.
so Tyler Glass now goes 5 innings. He gives up 2 earned runs. He only gave up 2 hits. And the way that start looked a lot like his first start in spring training. And I think what was becoming apparent was he was battling his control a little bit there, because he had 4 walks. And those 4 walks are what led to the Show Pod's 2 runs in that game. So I mean, I think if anything, when you look at Tyler Glasnow's debut as a Dodger, I think a lot of people would be like, it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't anything to write home about. It wasn't anything impressive. I mean, he did have 3 strikeouts. He only threw 77 pitches, which I thought that's what was going to happen, because on the other end, the Dodgers lineup made Darvish work. And some of the pitches that Darvish was throwing were just really nasty. So the Dodgers were up there battling. And so compared to what the Dodgers lineup was doing to Darvish, look, if he's going to go 5 innings and give it, I would have liked him to go maybe 1 more inning, but we'll see that later on in the season. This was his first start of the year, and I feel the Dodgers are always very conservative. I did not see him going more than 5 innings.
I think there's a lot of factors at play here too that I think again we forget some of the humanity in the game. Like he's not only is he playing in Korea, they're, different sleep schedules, they're also like doing touring and promotions and getting ready for this game. It's also the first game of the season and he's the new ace. We've had Clayton Kershaw, for the most part. Obviously, we've had some, I think Tony Gonsolin started one of the years for him at the last minute, but for the most part Kersh has been that leader for opening day, even if we are in Korea. So you've got somebody stepping into new shoes. You've got the adrenaline of being in a different stadium. You've got the noise that's going on, the chanting, the fact that he's on the Dodgers, which he grew up watching. Like that's got to be its own thing of like, this is my, this is the team I always wanted to play for. So you've got nerves. He's got a lot on the line. And he managed to hold it together. Yeah, he walked. Those 2 walks did come around and bite him and turn into runs. But there was one point where I think he even pitched and it fell short of the plate and bounced. And Oral made a comment on during the game that, in past years, pitchers had the sticky stuff. So they didn't have to grip the ball as tight. And in his opinion, it was more of like he's probably gripping it so tight, it just came out and then it bounced. And then, we saw what happened with that. But pitchers are also dealing with the reverberations of all of these other things, getting rid of the stuff, the pitch clock, everything else that's going on. So I think there's a lot of factors at play. I think he did a pretty sound job and he had a good defense backing him up.
Look, game 1 to me was probably the good part of this trip. What I thought was really good was the bullpen. After they came in, and you could tell that these are the Dodgers who they have, I think, have targeted as their leverage guys. Because after Glasnow was pulled out of the game, you saw Ryan Brazier, Daniel Hudson, Joe Kelly, and then Evan Phillips came in for the save. And those guys shut it down. I mean, in a perfect, like I said, if this game would have gone perfectly scripted, you probably would have had Glasnow go 6. You end up using one less guy in that game. Maybe you don't end up using Joe Kelly. Maybe you end up going Brazier, Hudson, and then Evan Phillips, and then you can save Joe Kelly for the next game. As we can see, we needed some help in the next game. But for me, the bullpen looked really impressive in that. And if that's what you're going to get this year, I think that's a very good sign. The other thing that I think you could probably sit there and say was a good thing was it seemed, I had mentioned earlier, the Dodgers were really making Darvish work. The Dodgers ended up with 7 hits, but they had 9 walks. And I feel like that's what the Dodgers do really, really well. They make pitchers work, and these guys like to take their bases on balls. So that to me was a positive. Another positive was like, look, Shohei got 2 hits. He got an RBI, and one of the things that I was really excited about seeing him was seeing him on the base paths. He got his first steal of the season, and I know there's some people that are thinking that Shohei may go 40-40 this year since he doesn't have to worry about pitching. He's just focusing on hitting.
I think there's something too that we're forgetting to highlight with all the negative talk out there. Like Mookie and Gavin Lux had a pretty good game too defensively. Like there were a lot of plays that were made where, people are concerned that this isn't going to go well, or Mookie at shortstop, oh my gosh. And they're like, judging by the color coding on my scorecard, between Gavin Lux,
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I said the color coding on my scorecard.
Nerd alert! Beware, beware. There is a nerd in the vicinity. Hey man, someone's nerding out over here.
As I was saying, Mookie and Gavin made some great plays as they're both transitioning. And this was, again, a high caliber game. So good for them. I counted 7 of where either Mookie, people were grounding out, Mookie was throwing to Freddie, or, Gavin was throwing, and then there was even a double play. So good job for them for, all of the not credit that they're getting. Like, good job for them.
I also think that some of the bad in that game was, and this is the thing that always just drives me crazy. It's my biggest fear. We usually see this in the postseason, and that is the Dodgers and their eternal battle with runners in scoring position. And the Dodgers went 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position. They ended up scoring 5 runs in this game, but at one point they were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. It wasn't, they got those 2 hits in the 8th inning, but
it doesn't get better for the next game.
I don't this is why I'm saying this whole trip seems like a really mixed bag. I mean, here's the ugly part, right, of this game. And this is where you had mentioned, look, the Dodgers could have won both games. The Dodgers could have lost both games. And this is how I say the Dodgers could have lost both games. Because after you got that great performance from the bullpen, and Glasnow did his job, he kept you in the game. He only gave up 2 runs. The big difference to me was that crazy play with Cronenworth. With the ball, like that seemed like some like divine intervention shit where the ball literally goes through his glove. It went through the webbing, and that led to the Dodgers scoring 4 runs. And it wasn't like they mashed the ball at that point. But that's, you have games throughout the season. You have games like that maybe and it all balances out. You win games that you shouldn't win, and then you lose games that you should win. But the Dodgers got a little help there in winning that game, because if that doesn't happen, that ending may end with them tied.
But we don't know, because they had the bases loaded. Muncy walked, Theo he singled, and then Outman walked. So you had the bases loaded before that. Actually, no, I take that back, because Hayward had a sac fly. So somebody had already come in. So you had 2 people on the baseline, and then when that error happened, then 2 more came in. But we had already tied the game at least at that point, and we still had 2 people on base. I know we tend to leave runners on base, so that is the challenge, but at that point, we still only had 1 out. So it's kind of up in the air. We'll never know, but yes, that definitely didn't hurt us that ball went right through the webbing of Cronenworth's glove.
And I feel like that's such a tough error. That is a tough error to
Like,
give the guy because the guy made the play. The ball went through his webbing. I get it. I don't know how else you score that. I don't know if you could give that. I mean, you're the nerd. I mean, excuse me, you're the score keeper.
mm,
Like, how do you the ball
I
went through his
mean,
webbing? I mean, how
I mean,
can you give that a hit?
I sadly recorded the error because it does suck. Like you plan on your equipment working. Everything he did, that ball was in the glove.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like they were even talking about it on the broadcast of like it wasn't even that the ball like broke the laces in that webbing. It just went right through. So whoever laced it or however it got laced, it was just so loose. I mean, he played the whole game that way. So it wasn't up until the 8th inning that happened, but here we are. It was I recorded it sadly. That's how I recorded it.
Look, in
But
the end,
also happily that it worked out for us.
in the end, it resulted as a win. I kind of see that's how the Dodgers are going to be playing for hopefully the whole season. You're going to get good pitching. The bullpen's going to do their job. You have an offense that, even though it didn't seem like they were clicking in that game, they still scored enough runs to win the game. Yes, ma'am.
So question. This has plagued us for seasons. We leave runners in scoring position. We have a high instance of leaving people on base. How do we fix that? Like because we know this is a challenge. How do we bring these people back around so they can come home?
Well, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I feel like baseball, it's what makes baseball a great game, but at the same time, I think it's what makes baseball a maddening game because this is a game of failure, right? I mean, if you succeed 3 out of 10 times, anybody else in the world, anywhere else in the world, you'd be fired. But that's considered elite in
Mhm.
this sport. So I think the runners in scoring position stat that I think you have to look at it the same way. You are going to fail the majority of the time when you have runners in scoring position. It's just the way the game is, but it just doesn't give me much hope when it's the first game of the season and the Dodgers are already in mid-season form when it comes to runners in scoring position.
But is it mid-season form if that's kind of par for the course? I mean, if we look at the next game, which I know we're transitioning into, we left 12 on base in today's game. We had 5 out of 17 or we were 5 for 17 in for runners in scoring position. But in contrast, the Padres left 12 on base. Or sorry, 11. So we had 12, they had 11. They were 10 for 24 with runners in scoring position. So,
That's almost a 500 clip. Like, you want that anywhere in the world, you would take that 10 for 24 with runners in scoring position. So, I mean, yeah, you mentioned game 2. Let's get, because game 1 was the good. Game 2 is the bad now of this trip. You just said that stat right now. They left 12 runners on base. The Dodgers scored 11 runs in this game, Amy. This is the first time I think since like the 90s that the Dodgers have lost a game where they scored 11 runs. Obviously, for me, the offense was not the issue in game 2. They looked better offensively in this game than they did in game 1. I mean, the game that Mookie had was ridiculous. Mookie went 4 for 5. He hits the first home run of the season for the Dodgers. He has 6 RBIs. Will Smith went 4 for 6. There were at least, I think, 2 balls that Shohei hit in game 2 that I thought were going to be home runs. And that's the other thing.
Mookie almost hit for the cycle. All he needed was a triple.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, in this stadium, and you could see it in game 1, they hit balls that I thought were, oh, that's gone. And it didn't even get to the warning track.
Well, that's
Obviously,
what they were saying that on the broadcast, though, that this is not a home run friendly park, that typically you're going to hit a lot of doubles. You're not going to hit a lot of homers.
That's why when Machado hit that ball off of Fire Ice, and I was just like, oh dear God. Like, He must have really smoked that. Could you imagine if he hit that in a stadium where the ball did carry? It might have gone out of the stadium. But like I said, I don't think the offense was the issue. Will Smith, it's good to see Will Smith get 4 hits in a game. He went 4 for 6 in that game.
He's no
The issue,
stranger to hitting, though. He carried us not just last season, but he's done it in previous seasons. Before he had that, he got hit in the head last year and then had the rib issue. And then I think he had an oblique issue after that. He helped carry the team in the beginning. So he is a good producer. He just had some bad luck last year. So what he put up today, not shocked at.
well, the good of this game was the offense. Like I said, you saw the possibility with this offense, and you hope that this is the offense that we're going to see more consistently. So they put up 11 runs. That should be more than enough for you to win a game. The bad. Here's the bad, Amy.
Wait,
And
let's all just take a collective breath. Okay, here we go.
All right. You got to start with the beginning, and that's Yamamoto. Yamamoto went 1 inning. He only gave up, but it was 1 inning. We have to look at it as 1 inning.
He had 2 strikeouts.
Exactly. He gave up 4 hits, 5 earned runs, only 1 walk, but he made 43 pitches in that first inning, Amy, and this was the Yamamoto that this is now. He looked like this in his last 2 spring training starts, and now his first start of the major league season. It's more of the same. There's issues with it. He had a lack of command, and that's something that hopefully he'll be able to fix. As the season, it's a really long season. So before everybody starts saying, Juan's panicking, I'm not panicking, but
it's only his 4th game and his first real one. And so again, I kick back to they're in Korea. They've got adrenaline. He's playing for the Dodgers. He's got this huge contract on his back. Like, he had a lot going on in his head too. He is a professional and, but there is still an adjustment that he's still continuing to make. Obviously, we want this to improve over the season. All right, I'm done. Go on.
But this is about patterns, Amy, and that is, like I said, the last 2 spring starts, this is what he looked like. It is obvious, like if you looked in that first inning, Bogarts swang at the first pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Then Tatis got hit by a pitch. And then Cronenworth gets that triple, and then you get a wild pitch. He didn't help himself, but these guys know that he throws strikes. And because he throws strikes, they're up there hacking. So what I thought was interesting is Dylan Hernandez had noticed this the game before when Yamamoto was talking to the press, and that was that he felt that Yamamoto came off a little nervous. And look, how do you blame the guy? It's his first. I know he's 25 years old, and again, I can't stress this enough, guys. He is technically a rookie. I know he's won so many awards in Japan, but he's making his first major league start. Not only is he making his first major league start, but he's doing it in Korea. And it's almost like, it's more pressure being added on. But this is coming from, I think, some other people that observed this, and that was not only did he suffer from a lack of command, but he looked like he didn't have much confidence either. And I get it. When you can't get anybody out, how are you going to be confident? But again, this is about establishing patterns and routines. And I keep going back to poor, Syndergaard over here. That was a dude that had no confidence, and you could see it after every game that he's like, look, I am trying my best and I just cannot get people out. I understand it is super early, but I think part of not just baseball, but any sport is the mental aspect of it. And what I think is something to watch is he had 2 bad outings in spring, and now his first outing to start the season is kind of the same thing that we saw in those 2 outings in spring training. He seemed, and And after the game, he brought up the stretch again. He has problem. He says he has difficulty pitching out of the stretch. He feels he has identified what those issues are, and that he's going to work with Mark Pryor to fix it. So those are all things that they're telling us, and those are all things that we need to keep an eye on, because his next start will be at Dodger Stadium.
I get, like, everything that you said is valid. I totally agree. I just think that if we're worried about patterns, yes, he is only four games in, but I'm sure the front office has already identified some of the things that they want to work on. I guess I'm confident in that, at least if this is happening, it's happening with the Dodgers, who treat their players well. They have Doc, who's a player's manager. So if he's going to thrive somewhere, I'm really hoping it's here. I understand what happened with Syndergaard. I'm hoping it doesn't go that route, but I'm hoping, again, because he's still adjusting not only to a new country. He just moved to the US. Now he's in Korea, and then, coming back. There's a lot of adjustments for this guy. Like, I'm not going to compare myself to him, but, like, I have a lot going on this week at work and whatnot, and just trying to be here and be focused on this podcast and do my best. Like, there's nothing writing on this, and I feel pressure in myself. Like, I don't even have what he has going on. And so I think that he's in the best place that he could be if this was going to happen, to have this team bolster him. And I'm hoping that everything that you're seeing, and everybody else, even on the media side, is seeing, the Dodgers have already identified, and they're going to be working on that too. So hopefully we'll see some changes, especially, pitching out of the stretch. And then, he'll start to make those adjustments.
Before everyone starts saying there goes Juan being Chicken Little again, and this will put things in perspective. Hideo Nomo struggled early in the season, in his rookie season. He ended up winning Rookie of the Year, and he did okay. So by all means, I don't want to come off as this is all doom and gloom with Yamamoto. These are all, the important thing is, I guess, you're identifying the issues. It is going to take time, I think, to address them and fix them. The hope is that he can fix them. But just from watching the games, I think this is what clearly you're seeing. This is a guy who, when he was mowing down in his debut, he was throwing strikes, right? I think he was like 16. 16 out of 18 pitches or something like that were strikes. This is a guy who depends on his command. And I know you can probably say that about any pitcher, but when this guy doesn't have his command, and obviously he's brought it up more than once, he is having a hard time with pitching out of the stretch, which makes me wonder, did he just not pitch out of the stretch that much in Japan? Well, when he had an ERA that he had on there, maybe it was just nobody was getting on base over there, which is a good problem to have. But yeah,
to be fair, but like 4 games isn't a lot to make that adjustment. If, he had a great first game, now we're identifying some issues in the second and third game, and now we're in the fourth game where, like, the pressure just got thrown on because it's the opening series and he's the second starter in that series. Like, he didn't really have a lot of time to adjust. So I understand, and I don't think you're chicken littling. I just read something recently that Chan-Ho Park had the same issue. He was up for 2 games, and then they sent him down to the minors. And so there is a lot to be said for the adjustment that he's making on and off the field. And I think part of that article had mentioned that for Chan-Ho Park, it was the adjustment of moving to a new country, the pressure of being the first Korean player. And I'm sure we'll cover this in more depth in our next episode. But a lot of that does play into, once you are thrown into that big league scenario, some players, it takes a minute to adjust. Not everybody's Bobby Miller, who goes out there and can just handle it. It's going to take some time. And we saw that with some of the rookies last year. And because Yamamoto is essentially a rookie and new to the US MLB, like, baseball format, there is going to be some adjustment. There's going to be some hiccups there.
Just to piggyback on what you had said, the whole transitioning, and I think we take that for granted, and we just assume that these guys are professionals and it's so easily for them to do it. I saw something online, and I want to get your opinion on this. Of course, there's the underlying story, and we're gonna get to it, guys. Check out the next episode. But with Shohei's interpreter Ippei gone, because Ippei was also translating for Yamamoto. So Will the Thrill, who used to be Hinjin Ryu's interpreter,
Kenta
has
Maeda, I think I
oh,
read.
thank you for correcting me. It was Kenta Maeda, saving
I
me
don't
from a
want you to I don't want you to get a
you're,
base running blunder.
you're so smart. You're so smart. You're the best. You're the best. Who used to interpret for Kenta Maeda is now interpreting. And like I said, we're going to get this in the other episode, but I think that relationship between an interpreter and the person that needs it is a very special relationship. And all of a sudden, you put something in new. I just thought it was curious. It wasn't something that I had put much thought into. And I don't know if I necessarily want to use it as an excuse, because we talked about this in spring training. In one of the post-game interviews, it looks like one of the interpreters that he was using before seemed to have had a hard time translating some of the questions to him. So now I'm wondering if there was an issue between the coaching staffs translating information to Yamamoto. Do you think that maybe the translation, the interpreting may have played an issue in this game?
I mean, it crossed my mind. I'm not going to say none of the Dodgers will ever use whatever's happening off the field as an excuse for their performance, but they're also human. So to say that that doesn't have an impact, especially interpreters in general, whether you are close to them or this is just the person hired to do the job that day, you are still trusting them to give a faithful interpretation or rendering of your message, but also to receive that back. So, depending on like, can I trust what is being said, and not in a am I safe way, but like, did I understand that right? That's what you want me to do. And not to say that Will isn't doing that, just having that in the back of your head, that's just one more thing going with everything else that's going on for him today. So, could it be a factor? Absolutely. Will he lean on it? I doubt it.
He wasn't the only bad part of the game, though. I know pitching, like everybody, again, the Dodgers scored 11 runs in this game. I can't stress this enough. They could have won this game. That should have been enough to win a game, but Yamamoto only gave up 5 earned runs. The final score was 15-11. So the bullpen, they got no help from the bullpen today. And in game 1, the bullpen was so good, and we got the exact opposite from the Dodgers bullpen today. And Michael Grove gave up 3 earned runs. Kyle Hurt, who everybody was pining for, everybody's like, you got to have him. He was made to look human today because he actually gave up a run. Kyle Hurt gave up a run. He went 2 innings. But everybody who pitched, with the exception of Gus Varlin, gave up a run, and that was because Gus Varlin, I think, only went a third of an inning.
He did.
But everybody else,
and Mookie and Lux actually saved him in a force out. Look at that.
Yeah. So, and I get it, because those aren't your high leverage guys. Those guys that we saw in this game are usually guys that you're going to see eat up innings, or those are the guys that you're going to see when other guys are not available.
And to give you your flowers, Juan, you have said this in the past. The more pitchers you have in a game, the more likelihood that something's going to go wrong for one or more than one. And we saw 7 pitchers today. So even if a couple of them had an off day, look what that leads to across the innings. Like you want your starters obviously to go deeper into the games, but when you start digging into the bullpen, it's kind of again, maybe all of these guys are dealing with the adjustment of being over there. I'll never know. I'm not playing over there. They are professionals. They do need to deliver, but there is, these are some high leverage games in another country.
Look, and this is why I say, hey, the Dodgers could have won both games over there, because if a couple of these guys do their job and they have shut down innings, the Dodgers may come back and win this game because of their offense. But that didn't happen. But now let's get to the ugly from this game. What? You say, Juan, I mean, the pitching was pretty ugly today. No, I think there was more ugly today, and that is the defense. We have talked about this I think ad nauseum. I think this was a legitimate concern going in there, and I know that it's going to be exasperated. And that is, Max Muncy made 2 errors today. Those 2 errors resulted into 2 runs. Again, You shave off 2 runs, you get the relievers to have a couple relievers have shutdown innings. The Dodgers could have come back, and you can't give teams extra runs. You just can't do that. Now, in Muncy's defense, I will say this: the first error, that ball down the line, I think even if Muncy catches that cleanly, I'm not too sure that that's still an out because he was in foul territory. That was going to be a really long throw to first. I'm not sure that results in and out, and maybe it does. And again, they can get out of the inning with one less run, but this is the concern throughout the year. I think this is the thing that's happening here, right, Amy? Is and Dave Roberts, to his credit, came out and defended Muncy today after the game, saying that today's game is not indicative. They were all talking about recognizing the amount of work that Max Muncy has been putting in to improve his defense. But you can do all that, but this is a results-driven sport. He's been putting in the work, but he still got 2 errors, and they led to runs. And the concern is, I think you could probably overcome that in the regular season, but in a short series in the playoffs, you can't give another team 2 runs.
No, I would agree. I have those on my scorecard. They made me sad.
I'm sorry, you have them on your what?
I will before you beat me to it. They're actually color coded in pink on my scorecard.
Nerd alert! Beware, beware. There is a nerd in the vicinity. Hey man, someone's nerding out over here.
So, unlike you, I have not had a chance to watch the game yet because I was sleeping this morning and then I was in back-to-back meetings all day. But I did get to score the game, so I have an idea of how it went. So, I'm curious to see what those errors played out as. Ideally, this is not how you want to play the game, but unfortunately, this is how some of those games go. You had Cronenworth with his error yesterday. We've got Max Muncy with 2 today. I think they even counted 1 off of Outman on one of the sack flies. So
he had a throwing error.
Yeah.
It was a miscommunication. Freddie Freeman wasn't at the bag. So you have to sit there and go, okay, why did you make that throw out, man? But it doesn't matter. It was an error.
Muscle memory is muscle memory. If I'm like trained to all right, grab this ball and throw, yes, I should be looking to make sure my first baseman's there. But there's definitely room for improvement, but as far as it being the second game and what the offense was able to do, and the defense still made some good plays behind these pitchers. So it's not like we just threw the game and it was like 15-2. So I think it's not the start that we wanted in the second game, but it could have been way worse.
Absolutely. And so, look, all I'm saying is this: you can sit there and look at these games. These 2 games, I think, are indicative of what we're going to see this year. There's going to be moments where
you mean baseball? We're going to see baseball this year. We're going to see baseball happen. Okay, just
what I'm afraid is going to happen is there's going to be moments where they're going to look really, really good, and then what we saw in game 2, that's what we're going to see in the playoffs. That is the biggest fear.
Baseball.
But going into the season, one of the concerns is the left side of the infield. That's the whole reason why they moved Mookie to shortstop, because they were afraid of the defense on the left side of the infield.
Defense, again, going back to my color-coded scorecard, Mookie made a lot of plays at short. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 here where, he saved the defense in those respects. So yes, Muncy did have those 2 errors, but Mookie was over there bolstering at least the left side from where his position was. So we are at least making up for that. So some of people's concerns can at least be assuaged that, okay, Muncy does have some work to do, and I'm sure he's well aware of it, but Mookie is over there bolstering that defense.
And I also just want to point out to everybody, I did wake up at 3:00 in the morning to watch game 1. Game 2, I said, hell no. And thank goodness I went to MLB TV and I was able to just watch it once I woke up at a decent hour.
That's what I
Um,
will be doing later. I will be rewatching it.
but yeah, I was one of those guys that woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and was watching the game. Before we end the show, do you have any last words, Amy?
We won the first game.
That's right. The Dodgers are 1-1, and they're coming back to LA. We are going to have
So
baseball
wait,
back in the state.
we're sitting at 500 right now, right?
We are sitting at 500. We are. So next week we're going to get to be able to relive the home opener. That's the great thing about baseball is there's always two opening days. There's opening day and then there's the home opener. Unless you open the season at home, then you only have one opening day. But we're lucky we get to celebrate two opening days. Before we end the show, I do want to give a shout out to Campeon Club. They gave us some swag here. I'm wearing a shirt from them. You can't really see it very well on YouTube.
Juan
So
is not trying to flash the camera for those of you who cannot see it, who are just
giant size cans. If you guys are interested in this, check them out on their Instagram. They are Campeon Club. They've been very, very good to us. They are big supporters of the show of Baseball Shangri-La. We want to go ahead and repay them. So go check out their stuff. They're really good to us. So that being said, let's end with some business here. If you are listening to us on the audio side of the podcast, please make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast, rate us, write us a review. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification button, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, follow us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amy Cuevas, and I am Juan Ramirez. You have been listening or watching another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.